Hello, I'm Inkdrop Nightcloud. I usually go by Inky, and I use they any pronouns. Today, I'm drawing the 7th, 8th, and 9th Artfight attacks from this season. Here we are starting with Raza, a character owned by DawnShimmerstar. The setting for this piece actually came from when I was testing my Ko-fi. I created a 100% discount code and gave it to Dawn to send a test commission. The issue was, of course, that unless she made an account, she could not actually message me to go through with the whole process, so I couldn't actually get the details and send the piece through Ko-fi as intended. So I have now drawn it as an Artfight attack. Raza uses they/them pronouns and enjoys wood carving. They used to perform as a group before they had an accident that left them mute. Dawn had requested Raza dancing in an empty room. I wasn't 100% sure how to make it clear that they were dancing, but I did my best. Hopefully, with more practice, I can improve. I had a lot of fun with the lighting on this piece, even though it took like 4 sketches to feel right. Yeah. Alrighty. I've ran out of things to talk about in this segment, as I usually do. So, here's the Omori soundtrack. we start on our second piece. This is Willston, owned by Flemter. I chose to draw this one as a sort of revenge for my split Sona Astral Waybright being included in their mass attack. I really liked the character's orange eyes, so I chose shading colors that highlighted that. I chose a brick wall as the background and had the character leaning against it, as I thought it would look cool. So, I don't have much more to say about this piece, but I at least wanted to credit the owner and everything. But anyway, yeah, we're going right back to the Omori soundtrack. I just kind of wanted to make a few statements. Time for our third piece. This is Joanna, owned by NoK08. This one counts as a friendly fire as we're both on Team Crystals. And it's also technically a revenge because they included my OC Hazel Ferreira in their mass attack. As usual, this character stood out to me when I was selecting who to draw for the revenge. I loved her hair. I took quite a bit perfecting the pose before sketching on this one, as I didn't have any good ideas. Her holding out the phone was a last-minute idea. I had to determine the lighting of the scene because I thought it would look really cool to have the glow of the screen being the main light source. Of course, over the fight, I was slowly trying to improve on drawing folds and clothing. I worry I may have gone too over the top with the sleeves on this one. So, yeah, that's all I can think about to say about this piece. Sorry that these segments are so short. Anyway, more music time. thank you so much for watching to the end. If you like my art and you want to see more, please feel free to check me out on some other platforms such as Instagram, Blue Sky, and Kara. I post a lot of my OCs with detailed profiles on Unveil, so if you want to learn more about them, you can check them out there. And I also have a Ko-fi where I have commissions open, so if you want that. And I have a Discord server, so if you want to chat with me and a few other people in the community, that's also in my description. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you again in the future. But until next time, bye!